What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Friday, April 16th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 10-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I'm going to give you two super value plays here. Dennis Smith Jr. is out. So both of these guys are going to get a bunch of minutes here tonight, and they're both super low salary. So I like Killian Hayes from the Detroit Pistons playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Killian Hayes scored 23 fantasy points last game, played 25 minutes, with a 19% usage rate. He's projected at 26 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6.8 times value. He's 3,800 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 215.5 points scored in this game, and he scored 38 fantasy points in his last game versus the OKC. It's a great matchup, so I like Killian Hayes here versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, the other value play from the same team is Saben Lee from the Detroit Pistons playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. Saben Lee, he averaged 14.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 15 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He should get some extra minutes here tonight. He's projected at 22 fantasy points. That's 6.3 times value. He's 3,500 FanDuel salary and 400 less on DraftKings. So I like both of these point guards as value plays for the Detroit Pistons. So I like Saben Lee here versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like CJ McCollum from the Portland Trailblazers playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing shooting guards. CJ McCollum has averaged 38.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 35, 26, and 38 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 37, 35, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 39.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 7,800 FanDuel salary and 200 more on DraftKings. He scored 34, 51, and 40 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Spurs, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 231.5 points scored in this game, so plenty of fantasy points to go around. So I like CJ McCollum here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, another shooting guard that I like if you want to take a chance on him is Tyler Hero from the Miami Heat playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Tyler Hero has averaged 27.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He scored 19, 15, and 32 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 26, 27, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 26 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.3 times value. He's 4,900 FanDuel salary and 400 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 222.5 points scored in this game. It's a fantastic matchup, so I like Tyler Hero here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the worst defense overall, and they give up the third most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Jimmy Butler has averaged 45.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 38, 40, and 47 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 32, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 45.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. He's $9,200 FanDuel salary, and he's the same price on DraftKings. He scored 38, 39, and 36 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Timberwolves, although I just got a feeling he's going to put up a 50-plus fantasy point game here and get you 5 times value or more. So I like Jimmy Butler here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, another small forward that I like in a great matchup is Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans playing the Washington Wizards, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Brandon Ingram has averaged 38.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 44, 56, and 42 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 33, and 35 minutes. He's projected at 39.1 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score closer to 44 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's $8,300 FanDuel salary and 200 more on DraftKings. So I like this pick because he scored 47 fantasy points in his last game versus the Wizards, but also Vegas thinks there's going to be 242.5 points scored in this game. So I like Brandon Ingram here versus the Washington Wizards. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Christian Wood from the Houston Rockets playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing power forwards. Christian Wood has averaged 39.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate, but he scored 55, 51, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 34, and 35 minutes. He's projected at 41.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $7,800 FanDuel salary and 500 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. I think he can still hit value on DraftKings. He scored 40 and 36 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Nuggets. Vegas thinks there's going to be 224 points scored in this game, so I like Christian Wood here versus the Denver Nuggets.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, another power forward that I like. Really love this play. I've really liked this guy after he changed teams. He's playing a bunch of minutes. He's super productive. So I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Daniel Tice from the Chicago Bulls playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Daniel Tice has averaged 21.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 24 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 30, 25, and 34 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 27, and 28 minutes. He's projected at 21.9 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.5 times value. He's 4,000 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, but I love that DraftKings price. And he scored 25, 25, 28, 13, and 37 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Grizzlies. So I like Daniel Tice here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Jusuf Nurkic from the Portland Trailblazers playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Jusuf Nurkic has averaged 26.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 22 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He scored 39 and 28 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 25 and 22 minutes. He's projected at 27.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 5,500 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. Now, it was a while ago, but he scored 53 fantasy points in his last game versus the Spurs. I don't expect him to score that many points, but he could break. I'm expecting 35 to 45 fantasy points here, especially if he can get over 25 minutes here in this game. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 231.5 points scored in this game, so I like Jusuf Nurkic here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, another center that I like is Wendell Carter Jr. from the Orlando Magic playing the Toronto Raptors, who have the 12th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing centers. Wendell Carter Jr. has averaged 27.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. But he scored 47, 31, and 30 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 31, 29, and 27 minutes. So he's playing more minutes. His production is increasing. He's projected at 28.6 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 30 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's 6,000 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 219 points scored in this game. He scored 33 fantasy points in his last game versus the Raptors, so I like Wendell Carter Jr. here versus the Toronto Raptors.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.